What is going on, guys? A brand new video,
Exciting.
brand new series for our channel. We've started out with the NBA betting videos, but today, Fat Guy, NHL hockey is back on track. We have the NHL Betting Market preview for January the 13th, 2021. Excited for hockey to be back. We'll start off with the Pens Flyers. There's 983 early bets on this game. Flyers opened at minus 118. They've been bet down to minus 101, despite receiving 51% of the bets and 66% of the money on the money line. What do you think about this one, Fat Guy?
Reverse line movement here.
Yeah, starting
already
off
on
strong.
starting off strong here. I don't know if this. There's a chance though that this there could have been despite money coming in the Flyers, there could have been like an injury or something or a COVID update that could have negatively affected the Flyers, and then that would move the line regardless of whether there was money put on. So that's always a possibility here. But this is interesting. Nonetheless, we would have to look that up, and that's probably the best indicator I can think, considering this is a game. The season hasn't started yet, so there's not much else to go on. That is one positive theory I can have. Again, we haven't looked because we're strictly just trying to understand the market on its own. Eventually, we'll compare it with news, probably post-season, oddly enough.
The OU is another interesting market here. So the OU sits at 6 goals. The under is minus 113. At least that's what it opened at. But it's been pushed. The under 6 goals is now minus 127 on the under, despite 38% of bettors and 31% of the money being put on the under 6 goals.
That's another thing too. Is this might follow along the same news cycle that I said. If there is negative news as far as players being able to perform, particularly offensive players, this might affect it artificially without actually any money put down. One interesting thing of note, though, is you're gonna see this a lot. I mean, I've never really followed NHL market. I haven't been an NHL bet, and I've taken some NHL bets over the years, but I haven't actually made one since Chicago winning the Stanley Cup against. Yeah, that's probably the last time I did. And that would have been the first time, I think, too. So quite some time for me. But you will notice this, that the OU is less likely to move the number from between 6, 6.5, 5.5. It's less likely to move it. It's more likely to move the juice because goals are at a premium, right? Like NBA, there's 2 and 20 points, right? You can just move it a point, right? This, they're just going to move the juice a lot more. You're going to see that a lot. So interesting news. I wonder if there is some bad news against the Flyers offense would be my guess.
Well, it's interesting to note here that the juice did move towards the under. However, percentage of bets and percentage of money is heavy on the over. So It's a reverse juice movement on the 6 goals. However, you're rooting
RLM too. Same thing.
It's the version of reverse line movement for the OU. The one thing I will say, though, is that the under, you're going to be getting paid back at minus 127, which isn't a terrific payout. This is a game that you'd have to win, 57% of the time to
59, I was going to say.
So
58 in there.
It's one of those ones where you might have lost the value, but congrats to you if you were able to get the under 6 at minus 113. Onto the spread for Pens Flyers. So Flyers are 1.5 point favorites at home at plus 199. That's what they opened at. They're currently a minus 1.5 at plus 242. 17% of bets on the Flyers against the spread or on the puck line, and 44% of the money on the Flyers on the puck line.
This is the most interesting one. I we're gonna get the numbers in going forward, and 242. Let's. Because they got to win by 2. They were already underdogs to win by 2. And I always wonder, how much does an empty netter, enforce this? It's always interesting to me. And what are empty netter percentages? That's something we might get to as well, right? A lot of fun stuff with the hockey market that's yet to be explored. 199 to 242. That does indicate to me that perhaps there is an injury maybe to offensive players. It's a speculation, like I said. Again, I have not looked, but it does look that way unless, for some reason there is a lot of movement on the Penguins. Interesting stuff nonetheless. I wonder if 242 at minus 1.5 is better than Flyers to win minus 101. That's one of those things we're going to be battling here is between puck line and money line. So very interesting stuff here. This is fun. This is a fun one to start with.
On to the Canadiens Maple Leafs, an all Canadian matchup here. 945 bets. I guess they're all going to be all Canadian matchups when it comes to the Canadian teams this year. The Maple Leafs open at minus 134. They've been bet up to minus 139. 53% of bettors and 55% of the money is on the Maple Leafs money line. Fat guy, there's not a lot to glean off of this. This is pretty much equilibrium, and the books are happy to take the same amount of exposure on both sides of this money line.
Yeah, interesting stuff here. Little small line movement, but I mean, I guess it's lateral. I guess it's lateral, Big Rye. There's
nothing else to talk about. This is split right down the middle. There's nothing that you and I can glean off of this.
Yes.
Minus 139 for the Maple Leafs at 55%. There's very, very slight value on Montreal, but the line has moved in Toronto's favor. There's really nothing to glean off of this using market factors. On to the OU, where there is something to glean off the market factors. So it opened at 6, closed at 6. Let's talk about the juice. The under opened at minus 103, but it's currently at minus 110, despite receiving 34% of bets and 27% of the money. So, fact,
if I were to like something...
Yeah, if this is probably, to me, the healthiest indicator so far out of all the games. But under on the Maple Leafs Canadiens game at 6 goals seems like there is good market value. Despite 66% of bets and 73% of the money being on the over, the juice has moved in favor of the under. And at minus 110, it's a lot better than betting that minus 127 above for the OU that we were talking about for Penguins
absolutely.
Flyers. So it's we're not here to tell you what to bet or what not to bet, but as far as betting indicators, reverse line or reverse juice movement in the OU case is something that the Fat Guy and I like to look at and follow. So interesting to see that the under has a pretty strong market tendency here.
Despite the one weird thing, though, is it's less dollar per person. Like, usually in this spot, it would be like 90-10 volume, and the 10% volume is betting 27% of the money. I'm wondering if there is I wouldn't be surprised if there is a couple like I bet you 5 Highline pros, and maybe one of them likes the under. And his interpretation of the OU of 6 minus 103 is worth enough weight to move it. So, anyways, very interesting stuff there on the OU.
And we're going to get to highlight that exact market you just talked about later on. So, just a teaser for the folks at home, as they like to say.
Eye candy. Is that what they say? Eye candy, yeah.
So, we finally did find some exposure. So, that money line might have been a farce. But let's take a look at the puck line for Canadiens Maple Leafs. So, Maple Leafs minus 1.5, plus 190. Currently minus 1.5, plus 186. 39% of bettors are on the Maple Leafs. However, 98% of the money is on the Maple Leafs puck line, Fat Guy. What do we glean from this? What does this tell us? Well, this is the first time you and I are looking at this market. I have a feeling not a lot of people bet the puck line in hockey. That's just a theory early on. We're going to obviously find out the more we do this and the more we study.
It's the least amount bet from my experience in the gambling world, which I don't know if it's extensive, but I've been in the muck. I've been in the streets, unlike Big Rye behind the computer, and I don't recall people requesting to take puck lines nearly as much as just hockey money lines. It's just maybe puck lines more interesting. It's just because they're trying to bridge the gap, but spreads don't work as much when because goals are difficult. It's harder to score a goal than it is an NFL point, and way harder than an NBA bucket, right? So it's spreads are generally better because you can get 50-50 sides of the money, and people it's a 50-50 wager. It's way harder to pull that off in hockey. So we are going to be looking at the two markets in conversion, but again, it's going to take probably a full season before we even get some sort of handle on it. The puck line narrowly moved down, and I don't know what to make of it, to be honest. 98% of the money, but it might be 98% of 40 bets. So who knows? It probably doesn't mean much. That threshold I always talk about, it probably doesn't cross it.
Yeah, and interesting too with the OU, the book's obviously favoring the under with how this market has adjusted. This is looking like, I know this is going to be the story for most NHL games, but Leafs probably win 3-2 here. I know I'm not exactly going off on the going out on
for
the
a guy
ledge
who never makes
that,
predictions the last few months doing these.
But that way, the books still win on the Canadiens puck line, the Maple Leafs money line, and the under. So something interesting.
That does seem like a reasonable score. I got to be real.
That was, yeah. Blackhawks Lightning is the next game. 756 bets. Lightning open minus 248, so very big favorites to open up this season. They are currently minus 240. 57% of bets and 65% of the money is on the Lightning. This is pretty close. There might be a little bit of exposure actually on the Blackhawks. No, there is a little bit of exposure on the Lightning, but not much to talk about here.
Yeah, it's pretty even, despite the money percentages, because like they don't care about the volume. It makes no difference if it's 99% on one side, 1% on the other. Well, not quite. Okay, it's more important about balancing the money, and they're pretty well balanced here, considering the favorite has more money and the underdog has less. But considering the underdog's odds and the favorite's odds, they're going to make money either way.
And then on to the OU. It opened at 6.5, still at 6.5. The juice has pushed on the under from minus 115 to minus 123. 55% of bettors and 66% of the money has helped push that under juice from minus 115 to minus 123.
We got lateral movement here. Makes sense. So, you get more money on one side, you just adjust the price, and the best way to adjust the price in this case, rather than move it to half point or half puck to 7, minus to 6.5 minus 123 makes complete sense to me.
And then on the puck line, this line hasn't moved at all. Lightning minus 1.5 plus 109. 9% of bettors are on the Lightning. However, 58% of the money on the Lightning. Man. So a little bit of exposure there on the Lightning to win by 2 or more goals.
I mean, we've been doing these NBA games and not too many have jumped out at me. This is interesting to me. This is 9% of people are putting up 58% of the money. That means that 9 in 100 people are putting up 658 to 40. It just, I mean, are there hockey whales? Is there a thing? I don't know. I'm sure there is. But from this market too, it's lower. It's 756%. But and like we said, this is probably going to be the most volatile market, considering how small it can be. So you can probably sway it. I mean, we could probably put a bet down maybe and sway it. That'd be a fun experiment one of these days. But That's for another day, another time. Anyways, the against the spread market here. We'll call it, it's puck line. It's called puck line, but it's ATS. It's an interchangeable term between the two.
I'll fix it right now. That way we'll start.
Nice.
There you go,
puck
guys.
Line.
It's updated already.
So there you go. It's updated. Perhaps we posit theories that pro bettors prefer the puck line here at this payout than they do the Lightning to win the game. So they prefer the Lightning to win by 2 at plus 109 over the Lightning to win the game outright at minus 248 or minus 240, wherever they got it. That's just a theory.
All right, Fat Guy, on to our hometown Vancouver Canucks taking on the Edmonton Oilers. 794 bets on this game so far. Edmonton open minus 116. However, they've been bet up to minus 140. 66% of bettors has helped push that line up, but this is what I find interesting. Only 35% of the money on the Oilers, and that line has pushed up to minus 140. That's a very interesting line movement to me as far as the money percentages go.
Well, yeah, and then like usually we do money line and against the spread in conjunction. He's moved it to the farthest end because it's probably the least bet market is the puck line. But even if we just glance over real quick, all the money's on the Oilers too. So on that side, so maybe that's it. I mean,
But it's
maybe that's the
interesting to
reason.
note that the juice has moved against the Oilers on the puck line, but has moved for the Oilers on the money line. So we have two different markets here. The lines are
Completely,
moving differently. So it's looking like an Oilers win by 1 would be the best case scenario for the books. That way they have the 35% of the money they pay out on the Oilers anywhere from -116 to -140, and they would only have to pay out 3% of the money on Canucks puck line at anywhere from -251 to -225. So they are taking quite a bit of exposure on the Oilers to win by 2 or more goals, which is quite interesting.
No, it is very interesting.
Let's take a look at the OU for this game. This is the first game where the actual goals has moved from 6 up to 6.5, which I find interesting as well. The juice on the under was -115. At 6.5, it's -118. So even the juice has a lateral move as well with the OU. 90% of bets have pushed that over up half a goal, but 95% of the money is on the under. What do we make of this? This is crazy. This is like, obviously we've only looked at a handful of markets here, and you did tease it earlier with the Canadiens Maple Leafs OU, because you said, usually, a line like this, it's got 10% of bets and 95% of the money. Well, here we go. Your point is proven here. We see it here with this Canucks Oilers game. I don't even know what to make of this, to be honest.
I tell you what I do. Again, these are betting market videos, and we're not supposed to give any suggestions. I have to do it. Big Rye, how do we not? We're going to cross a chasm. I think there is significant value on this under at 6.5, because I'm only paying 3 points of juice, 3 1/18 extra from 6, and I get a half goal. So you know what I mean? Like, I get 4-2 on both sides, right? And 5-1 on both sides, and 6-0 on both sides. I mean, there is probably a discrepancy, like a half goal rather. This is again a theory, is probably more valuable below above an odd number, because games tend to be like 3-2, 4-3. 4-3, 3, like, you know what I mean? 5-4, that type of thing. Not that it'll ever get that high, but I mean, like, for instance, like 5 to 5.5 is probably the biggest movement, because 3-2 is probably the most likely score. So again, now we're getting into score and win margin analytics, which is a whole nother animal. But I do really like this. I really like this. But it is laid out to be like, the way that it's set up is it's probably most likely a 3-3 game going to overtime with the Oilers winning. Like, that's the way it's set up. But then it could be a 2-2 game going to overtime with either team winning. I like this under. I'm bullish about it. 10% of the guys are putting up 95% of the money in the first game of the first betting opportunity of the season.
So I will say this, though. I'm going to play devil's advocate on this side, because there's only 794 bets.
Yes.
Who knows how many bets have actually been placed? There might be 10 bets placed on this. Like, in the bizarre world, there might be 10 bets.
Yes, that's a possibility.
And,
I doubt it, but
the people might, the 9 people on the over might have put $10 each, and the guy on the under might have put 1,000. So that might be what has happened. Like, there might not be a lot of bets at all in this game. The other thing I'll say is that it's scary to me that the actual amount of goals has moved up half a goal in this game, because what that tells me from a layman's point of view looking at this, they're trying to encourage you to bet the under by moving that line. So if they're trying to encourage you to bet the under, and I see 95% of the money on the under, the books are taking a ton of exposure right now on the under, albeit I'm going to be devil's advocate to what I said earlier, that there is only 794 bets. So we might be reading way too much into this market, and there might be like absolutely nothing at stake for the books relative to everything else going on. There's, for the Canadiens Maple Leafs, that money line, it's so razor thin. Like, there's not a lot of value on either side. Whereas this, because that game might have 700 bets and it might have $100,000. This game might have 10 Well, like honestly, in all truthness, there's probably about 120 OU bets out of these 794 bets, and out of those 120 bets, like there's probably a couple $1,000s on this game. There probably just isn't that much money. So it's one of those ones where Fat Guy's telling you to take the under. I almost think there's value on the over, and because him and I are we're just making projections on what we think these markets are telling us, but we have no data to back any of this up yet. So
Yes,
this is something
correct.
that we're looking at. We're trying to find that meat on the bone. And I know for sure, even if the Fat Guy and I disagree, this is going to be the one where we go back to tomorrow and we're going to be like, what happened
This is a cliffhanger.
with this game?
This is for sure a cliffhanger. What he's saying, though, is basically Big Rye is putting more stock in reverse line movement. I think I'm putting more stock in the chance of
the
it
actual
being
value.
the
Having an
actual
extra
value
goal
of the bet, the extra half goal,
and
and the
trusting
fact that
sharps.
trusting that these are sharps, considering a lot of these bets would have been made like pretty early in advance, because it's just not
we're still 7 hours away from this game to finish.
So some of these bets have been made, 2 days ago. You know what I mean? It's because this is the first day of the season is why I'm putting more stock into that. But Big Rye prefers reverse line movement. I like the value and the predictive nature of whoever's modeling at 95%. But I'm speculating. I don't know those exact people. He is right. And it could just be a whale. You just don't see that very often. So for me, it's other way, oddly enough. And so then eventually you have to make those choices. So it is probably not. I do like it because of the reasons I had explained. He values reverse line movement. So I mean, there are other ways of going this as well. It's just interesting. Interesting is the way I put it. And this will be one we revisit tomorrow, 100%.
And only people from Vancouver could talk that long about a Canucks game.
I don't even like the Canucks. I've never liked them.
Now you're just bragging. On to the
Yeah.
Blues Avalanche, 832 bets. This is a 10:30 Eastern time start. Avalanche open -136. They've been bet up to -143. 66% of bettors, 87% of the money has helped push that line up. So they are taking some exposure on the Avalanche winning this game with 87% of the money, despite the line being -143.
Yeah, they are taking exposure on them. Who knows how much, though? Big Rye makes a good point. We don't have the handle for these games, and we don't have how the 832 bets is split between the three markets. So it is always difficult. We do have them in a strategic order. We do believe Moneyline, OU, and then Puckline is generally how these markets are going to play out percentage-wise. How big a percentage? We don't actually have those numbers, so we can't make a 100% guess. We just have a casual inference, as I would like to call it. 87% of the money, 66% of the bet. More dollars per person bet on the Avalanche. Natural line movement then from 136 to 143. There is an indication that perhaps this 136 was a bum line to open with, but a lot of times they're also like the modeling of the book. Like the book doesn't really do as much modeling, right? Like the individual bettors do. Like there's squares and sharps, and the guys with strong models is probably 1 to every 1,000 better, 1 to every 100. So they use a lot of those guys. They let those guys beat them to set the marketplace for other people. So it's actually almost better to have the best sharps in the game and allow them early lines and let them win a little bit of money so that you can make more long term. So there is a chance that perhaps the Avalanche line got bet, and 136, it is at a lower limit, though. They are smart enough to do that.
Yeah.
136 that's why they always make more money on closing lines than opening, because they use the information from the closing lines to help adhere the most profitable strategy on the closing lines. A lot of good information I just gave out in the last 2 minutes. Whoa, there we go. There is a chance that this was a bum line on the Avalanche, and there's a chance there is now a value on the Avalanche, but I couldn't be for certain. See,
this is the exact same as the Canucks Oilers OU, because I'm looking at this completely different. The Colorado Avalanche are the Stanley Cup favorites going into this season.
Yeah.
And for them as Stanley Cup favorites, the Blues are no slouches, but like the Avalanche are considered the cream of the crop this year. To think that the Avalanche were only -136 to open this, it's kind of fishy to me.
Looks too good to be true, maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of fishy to me. And considering 87% of the money has been put on the Avalanche, also makes me think that other people agree that they like that price on the Avalanche. What does worry me, though, is that the books have adjusted this line to push up to -143.
Yes.
At 87%, what the Avalanche would have to be like minus 300, even higher. So it's a obviously they can't set it that high, but they are taking quite a bit of exposure on the Avalanche, despite there only being 832 bets. So they might not be a ton of exposure, but when puck drop happens, this might change quite a bit. So that's an interesting one to follow.
I got to jump in here, though. However, with this information, if there was a reverse line movement, if this went down from minus 136 to, say, minus 127, my opinion on this would change completely, and I would think that this would heavily be a Blues play. So that just gives you an example, because that would mean stars aligning, right? So when the stars align, that's when you usually jump all over it. I think that there's a possibility at this, because don't forget, a lot of what I'm saying about the interpretation of these markets today is because this is the first game of the season, so there's not a precedent set. So I tend to favor, in these really early scenarios, I tend to favor the player. Big Rye is always going to. He likes betting with the bank, betting with the book, and I can understand why. I like to shift. It's just a philosophical difference, and that's why we're not really betting. We're just discussing how the market is going to ebb and flow.
And then for the OU in this game, it opened at 5.5. This also was bet up to 6, so it's moved up half a point. But the juice on the over at 5.5 was minus 117. Currently at 6, it's minus 105. You and I have absolutely no clue if this is just a lateral line movement or if this is a huge move. Like, we don't know how much half a goal is, especially from 5.5 to 6. But either way, it has pushed up to 6, helping like the books taking a little less exposure on the over with that line move up to 6. 67% of bettors, however, 67% of bettors are on the over. However, 66% of the money in this game is on the under. So that's an interesting. It's interesting. I'm trying to read into what this means. Fat guy, I'll let you take it while I ponder.
We're gonna have to do a lot of because a lot of understanding sports is I heard this once. We'll just do a little aside here. And when Andrew Luck retired, just to give a football inference, there's a famous sports bettor named Spanky, and he said he didn't know who Andrew Luck was. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But I actually believed him, and he said, I don't know the players. I know a value of a point. Well, knowing the value of a goal or a half goal, that's what it really is. What is the value of each movement in each situation? That's what it is. You don't have to know anything about any of the players. You're just betting team B against team A, and if this line moves at this, do I have a good price? So it's never about what do I think. I mean, you can use it that way, but think about it this way: how much better are your opinions? Your opinions better than everyone else's, and it probably isn't very much, if at all. All opinions are probably just as equally bad. What is important is what is valuable. And what is valuable at what price? Because all you're really doing is go to the grocery shopping. And you're going grocery shopping on a budget, and you're buying things on sale. That's all that sports betting is. And realistically, it's you bet the number, not the point. You bet the number, not the team. And here you're going to bet the number, not the team. Even though it is OU, there is no team to bet. Number, not the side. That's probably a better way of going. So we can't make an inference, but eventually you compile this data so that we do learn what is the value of a goal, how much is it worth in each spot, and then we can make an educated decision from there. Unfortunately, after doing all that work, you hope that there's this gold at the end of the rainbow, and what actually happens is you end up not betting a lot of these spots, Big Riot?
Yeah, that's really what is there. There's 3, 6, 9, 12. There's 15 markets. We might make, after this is done,
3
you and
plays.
Maybe like max. It's very rare that you do find opportunities to make plays.
Yes. Yeah.
But
that's the whole. It should be that hard though. Think about it this way: these guys make tons of money doing this. It's supposed the hard. It's another gambling idiom. It's the hardest way to make an easy living. So what you're doing is your everything is there. There's an invisible dollar value above it. You don't know what it is, but you're shopping for what's on sale, and very seldomly is something on sale.
On to the puck line for Blues Avalanche, and this is a market very similar to the Moneyline market. Actually, it's even further. We do have the wrong number here, so consider this plus 211 for the Avalanche. This shouldn't be minus 211. And the So this market here is interesting. So Avalanche -1.5 plus 211. They've been bet down to -1.5 plus 181. 53% of bettors and 95% of the money has been put on the Avalanche. So this also supports the Avalanche money line. So there has been a ton of money placed on the Avalanche winning this game and winning it big.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm gonna have to revisit this one as well, see how the Avalanche performs. Again, it's a 1-game sample. You can only take, how many hockey games are we gonna have here? I don't know, 600, whatever. It's like 1/600th of of a result, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and then times it by 3 because there's 3 separate ways to bet this, and there's obviously a lot more ways to bet it. So there's so much more money coming in on everything else.
Yeah, so you can't just go, oh, it didn't work or it worked. It's just not how things go. But I am going to be more interested to see how the Avalanche perform in contrast to the Blues. One thing about the NHL though is they're very forward as far as puck analytics, and what might be a better indicator is difference in chances. And then that could really, you could probably infer more from difference in chances than you would be able to from an actual score line. So there is a chance that you could make better informed decisions based on the market factors, your market hypothesis in relation to data such as chance difference. So there are that type of thing. I'm giving you a little bit window into type of ideas that we have behind the scenes.
And that's it, guys, for the NHL betting market for January 13th. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If it's the first time checking us out, remember to subscribe and follow along. We also have a membership where we go into a little bit more in-depth information as far as all the stuff that we find following these markets. But good luck in your January 13th wagers for the 2021 start of the NHL season.